How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be replacing the wheel bearing on this 98 Chevy S10. As you can see, I've already got the tire off. I've got the vehicle jacked up and secured with a jack stand. So now we go into what we need for this. I've got, of course, the bearings, which are these two things. This is the outer bearing, which is, as you can see, quite a bit smaller than the inner bearing. I have a seal here for the inner bearing. I also have a tub of bearing grease. I have here new guide pins for the caliper because mine were so rusted in I had to break them. I also have caliper grease to make sure that those don't ever get stuck again to where I have to break them and buy a new caliper. It's kind of expensive. Shop towels, of course. So what you do is, this calls for a 3/8 inch hex bit, and I've broken a lot of ratchets doing this. So what we do, as you can see, I've already got this loose. Basically, it's going to fit in there. You turn it counterclockwise to loosen it. Same as the top. This one is a bear. It's going to fight all the way. So after I get this loose, now it'll be time to take the caliper off and we can start disassembling the hub. So now, as you can see, I have the caliper bolts or pins, whatever you'd like to call them, out. The caliper is off the rotor, and now we are ready to start taking this apart. Now that we got the caliper off and we're down to the rotor and hub, we have to get this dust cap off. What works really good is if you take a screwdriver, push it down in, twist a little bit, it starts to come out. Take it, if you have to, rotate the rotor, stick it in the other side, turn it, and it comes right off. So after you get the dust cap off, you run into this. There is a cotter pin that runs directly through there. What I found works really good, take your toothpick, some people call them a pocket knife, you wiggle it a little bit and take that out, and that's out almost enough now to where you can get a screwdriver in there. I mean the tool, not the drink. And you should be able to pull it out. Otherwise, a needle nose might be my better choice here. Might have to go find one. So after a brief search of looking for needle nose pliers, I have discovered that they are gone. So we have to settle for a regular pair of pliers, which is fine. We just take and we grab the end of the cotter pin. It should come right out. So what I'm going to do, because I lost the one that I used last time, I'm going to set that down right there. And I think I have a package of new cotter pins, but if not, I can reuse that. Now it's time to get the big socket out. Maybe I can get this with my hands. Ideally, you'd have gloves, but I really don't care what society thinks. That'll come off of there shortly. Almost got it. So I'll set that right down by the cotter pin. There we go. Now I've run into another problem. There is a small washer in here that moves. So what I have to do is I have to take the screwdriver and it pries right out. If you noticed, after I did that, the rotor about fell off. It won't because it's sitting on the spindle. But that tells you that you've done everything correctly for the most part, and it is now ready to come off. Okay, so I stopped to clean up my hands a little bit. We are ready to pull this hub off and see how that outer bearing is looking. So what you do, you grab a hold and you can simply pull out on the rotor, and that outer bearing should just come right out. Upon looking at it, it's not doing so well. There's a lot of play in there, and that can lead to problems such as poor fuel economy and more difficulty in steering. So now we can pull the whole thing off, and now we're looking at the back inner bearing, and I think the seal stayed on there, so we might have to pry that off. But let's take a look, shall we? Alright, so I got this rotor off of there, and I flipped it over. And if you remember, I thought that the seal might have stayed on there. I was wrong, it's actually still in there. I already went and did this, but basically I just took this big screwdriver, stuck it right under the lip of the seal, pried up on a couple of the edges, and it popped out and flew halfway across the garage. So it can just hang out there. Then we got this inner bearing, and let's see what kind of shape it's in. It's actually in a little bit better shape than that outer bearing, but since you pull this off, you might as well do both of them. Ideally you'd be putting a new rotor and hub assembly on, but hey, we're college students, we're broke. Give us more money. Clean up my hands here a little bit. And you can take paper towel, shop towel. Paper towels you would find are a pain with grease. And you can just cram paper towels on there. Wipe that out. And I'm keeping all my shop towels on the cardboard there so I don't make a mess on the floor. But yeah, so I'm going to clean this out some more, and then we'll be ready to put new bearings in, grease it up, put it back on, and be done. Alright, so I've cleaned the hub out. I've got this new bearing here. What I just pulled this bearing out of is called a race, and that's going to sit down inside the hub. But since I don't have a race removal tool, I'm not going to mess with it. The last time I did it, I ended up wrecking an entire hub. So I prefer to buy all new stuff, but like I said, since I'm a college student, I'm broke, as are some of you. So what I did was, I have my grease. I just take a little bit on my finger. You go and you just go around. You want to get pretty much the entire surface of where this bearing is going to sit covered pretty decently in there. See how that's pretty much all pink now? It was blue. The grease color doesn't really matter, but all we do is we take this bearing, and it's tapered on this end, so that's the end that's going to face inward. And then what you want to do is you want to take a little bit more grease, and you want to pack the center of that, and you want to spin this around a little bit, get her covered, and get a little bit more grease here, and top of it a little big, a little bit inside. You don't have to be picky, it's packing a bearing, so you just gotta do as you see fit. If you want more in there, cool. If not, well, that's your thing. I'm not replacing the bearing for you 30,000 miles down the road. No, I'm just kidding. But so we got that pretty good now. Might just put a little bit more in there for kicks and giggles. A little more. That's pretty good. This seal we just set on there. And what I like, a little bit too much grease possibly. Nah, never. What I like to do is, after I clean my hands up, I'm going to get a block of wood and I'm going to set it on there, just on top of this seal. I'm going to get it started. And I can show you a pretty easy way of installing that seal really quick. Alright, now I am going to set this seal. What works really good is just a regular hammer. Normally I'd set a piece of wood similar to this on top and I would strike up here, drive it down and get it started, but I couldn't do that. So what works really good is to hold it on opposite sides of the seal, tap on 90 degrees away from your fingers and just kind of move around. And since now I've got it started, what you can do is just work all the way around and you'll know whenever it's sealed because you'll start to hit the back side of that. Oops. We should be good on this inner side. What I might do though is just take a little bit more grease. Just to make sure the rest is packed in there. Now we're ready to do the top side and re-put it all back together. Now that this is the hardest part really, so here we go. Alright, so just like the inner side, we are going to take some grease and we're going to put grease in the center of the hub. You don't really want to pack this too tight because if you pack too much grease in there, it'll get hot, it'll heat up, of course, and your bearings will warp, and then you'll just be doing this again. Hopefully you do it right the second time. So we got that now. Now we can take our outer bearing, and very similar to the inner one, you set it in there and you rotate it a little bit, you know, get it packed full of grease. Take some more if you have to. Pack it in the center. And get some more on top. Excuse the lighting. We are in the process of rewiring the shop, and so I'm having to use shop lights. Still not quite enough. This thing is just one thirsty pup. So that's looking better now. You take that excess grease out of the center and use it on the face of that bearing. So now that's ready to be put on there. What works really good is to actually pull that bearing back out, and since it's all greasy, put it right in the grease tub, put that rotor on, and then what we're going to do is put it all back together. Alright, now we got the rotor and hub put back on to the vehicle. We've got this spindle washer, and as you can see, it's got a little lip right there. There's a notch on the spindle itself that will slide onto. Then of course our castle nut, that'll go right back on after the washer's on. That washer is actually going to help hold that outer bearing in, so if you don't have that, I would suggest buying one or you're going to have problems. So now we got that on. You want it snug, and then okay, so we have the rotor and hub put back on. There is a spindle washer that you put on the spindle. It has a little notch that goes in this groove. Then we also put the castle nut back on. Now it's time to tighten the castle nut down and seat that bearing and seal on the inner side of it. You want this nut put on there at approximately 50 foot-pounds. You can do it with a torque wrench, or you can estimate it. Doesn't have to be perfect. So after you do that, you sit for a couple seconds, you back it off about half a turn, so then it's snug, and you adjust the castle nut to where the little hole right in there is facing up. You put your cotter pin through, and then after that, you take and you twist the cotter pin around to where it won't come out. And I am going to take these pliers, get this cotter pin halfway straight, and then I'm going to take these pliers if they will cooperate, which they won't, sorry, and I'm going to grab that cotter pin, pinch it fairly tight on there, and then now it won't have too much play. After that, of course, we have our dust cap. Simply goes on to the spindle, and you just tap it on until it's firm. So now we got that. Now it's time to put the caliper back on, and we'll be done. As you can see, I've got the caliper back on now. That means it is time to put the pins back in. So I've got this caliper grease here. What we're going to do is we're just going to spread that on to the pin, and you don't want to put this on the thread because that could cause it to come out while you're driving, and that of course would be a problem. So give me just a second here, and what we're going to do is kind of the reverse process. Gonna feed that through, it's gonna come all the way through, and if this will cooperate, I'll allow that to get in there. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to start it, and it will screw in to the caliper. From what I can tell, I'm going to have to use a ratchet. But what we can do here is get this other pin ready, and what I found works is you can just actually dunk it in and spin it, and you're going to get the same result as using the brush. Might get a little excess, but that'll be alright. And I mean, you just want a nice coating all the way around it, and then that should just go right together. And so far it is. So what I'm going to do next is just tighten these down, and then it'll be ready to put the tire back on. This saved a lot of money. A shop that will even do a bearing job won't consider doing it unless they're going to make approximately $300. In total, I have spent $7 a piece on the bearings, $4 on the seal, $8 in total grease, $1.95 in shop towels, and approximately $10 in tools that I didn't have. So really it doesn't cost that much. I mean, I've done a $250 job for, let's say, $40. So I mean, it can save a lot of time and money in your life. So you should definitely consider doing your own repairs on your vehicle. So thanks for watching. Hope it helped. Alrighty, so this is finished product. Everything is put back together. Those bolts are tightened down to spec. So now we just put the tire back on. Make sure the lug nuts are tight. At 50 miles, check them again. Ready for the road. Thanks for watching once again.